I want to play off one of the questions that Shannon had asked you earlier. You say you're making inroads with people of color, working class white voters. In a lot of states so far, the message hasn't totally translated. Those voters still seem to be leaning toward Hillary. How do we change that?
The answer is yes and no. In Chicago, in Colorado, in Nevada, I think we won the Latino vote actually. And we're doing very well with young Latinos. We're doing very well with young African Americans. Our problem is with older people, by the way, and not just African Americans, Latinos, but whites as well. But I think we are gaining a lot more support. And I think we just have to keep pressing our agenda, which is that in low income and working class communities, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, creating millions of jobs nationwide, rebuilding our infrastructure, making public colleges and universities tuition free, finally demanding that the wealthy and large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. That is a message that is resonating all across the country and in minority communities as well.
Very popular message of yours, your bread and butter perhaps. The wealthy need to pay their fair share. People who work, make an honest day's living, need to make a living wage. Yet what we see oftentimes here in Wisconsin and in other states is when we tell a company, you're not paying enough taxes, you got to pay your fair share, they just threaten to leave. They say, we're out of here. How do you stop that from happening?
Well, that is an excellent question, but it's a question that has to be dealt with. We can't succumb to blackmail, and this takes us into the broad issue of trade. What we have seen in Wisconsin, by the way, and all over this country, in Wisconsin, this state has lost tens of thousands of good-paying jobs as companies have shut down, moved to China, moved to Mexico, moved to other low-wage countries. We need a new trade policy which tells corporate America they just cannot shut down, move abroad, and bring their products back into this country. And that is certainly one of the areas that we're focusing on.
You mentioned abroad. We have the horrific attack in Brussels. We have the bombing in Pakistan, mothers and their children killed on Easter. What is your plan to defeat ISIS?
Well, for a start, we have got to destroy ISIS. Let's make no bones about that. This is a barbaric organization which is a threat to civilization. Good news is that right now in Iraq, ISIS has lost about 40% of the territory it's controlled over the last year alone. We got to keep the pressure, Muslim troops on the ground, air attacks on the part of the United States and other major powers, training the Iraqi army to continue going forward. But by the way, I will do everything I can to prevent the United States Armed Forces from being involved in perpetual warfare in the Middle East. I think that would be a disaster. I voted against the war in Iraq. That was the right vote. Second of all, obviously, we need to improve our intelligence capabilities and share them worldwide to make sure there are not attacks like Paris, Brussels, or elsewhere. And that means international intelligence sharing. It means more coordination of federal, state, and local law enforcement officials here in the United States.
Let's go back local here in Wisconsin. You're no stranger to Wisconsin. When you are here, it's not uncommon to hear you have some harsh words for the Governor
Yes.
Scott Walker.
Yes.
Out of the various things his administration has been able to do since 2010, what upsets you the most?
Well, there are a lot. I mean, I think he has made it clear that he is a representative of big money interests and could care less about working families. But of all of the issues, the one that really strikes me deepest is his attack on voting rights, making it harder for people to vote. We have one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country on earth. We need to make it easier for people to participate in the political process. Now, my understanding is that as a result of his efforts, tens and tens of thousands of people may not be able to participate in elections. That is extremely un-American, that is anti-democratic, and by the way, that is cowardly. What that is a politician saying, okay, you may vote against me. How do I keep you from voting? I think really that's a pretty ugly situation.
We talk a lot about the term anti-establishment. We hear that all the time, but in this particular case, I've heard people who are so anti-establishment, they say, Bernie Sanders is my number one choice, but if he doesn't get the nomination, I would vote for Donald Trump as my second choice. That's how much I don't like Hillary Clinton. Have you heard that, and how do you respond to people?
Well, I have heard that, and I think there is a lot of anger. You know, people see a Congress which is kind of owned by big money interests. They're worried about their kids having a lower standard of living of them. They're seeing their jobs go to China. They're looking at a corrupt campaign finance system in which billionaires buy elections, and they don't see government doing anything to represent them except give tax breaks to billionaires. So I think there is a lot of anger out there. What Trump is doing is tapping that anger and saying it's the fault of the Mexicans, it's the fault of the Muslims. Well, beating up on some Mexican worker who makes $8 an hour is not going to solve the problems facing this country. We need to know why the middle class is disappearing, why we have so much income and wealth inequality, and that's what we've been talking about.
You trail by about 200 pledged delegates, yet that gap is more than 400 among the noted super delegates. Your campaign on a conference call said, we're confident we can get some of these super delegates to flip. How?
I think at the end of the day, what brings all of the super delegates together, whether they support Clinton or myself, is the understanding that it is imperative that we not let a Donald Trump or some other Republican into the White House. If you look at all of the evidence so far, look at the latest CNN poll, we beat Trump by 20 points. Clinton beats him by 12. State after state polls show me doing much better against Trump than Hillary Clinton. And I think the idea that we are the candidate that has the energy, that can create large voter turnouts, and can beat Trump will be a convincing argument to many superdelegates.
Always quick to correct anyone who doesn't get it right. Democratic Socialist. Did you know that Frank Zeiler, former mayor of Milwaukee, is the most recent last socialist mayor in the U.S.?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact.
Did you know him at all?
I don't believe I ever met him. I certainly knew of him, yes. And he served for a number of years here in Milwaukee, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Last question I have for you. The bird in Portland, where does that rank on greatest moments of your political career?
Well, it was a very touching and emotional moment. It was almost a little bit of symbolism there, that this little bird perched himself right on the podium. So we hope it's a good symbol. We hope, that this campaign is going to go forward and do the right thing and win.
Senator, I appreciate the time.
Hey, thank you so much.
Take care.